Hi everyone, welcome to week 11 of our SHSAT training program. So this week's topic is going to be solving word problems and, particularly translating these words into numbers. So, a lot of the time you're going to get a word problem, and most of the time, if you've been doing math, if you've been practicing, if you've been watching the videos, you can sort of tell what you need to do, like what kind of equation you need to set up, how the different numbers relate to one another. Sometimes they phrase it in a way that makes it a little bit trickier to figure out what you actually have to do. So, feel free to screenshot, but we have here this cheat sheet. We'll also post a link to it in the video description. That sort of just tells you there are certain key words in word problems that tell you exactly what operation you need to do. For example, if you have like a word like of, that sort of tells you that you have to be doing multiplication. Like if you have like 3 of something, then it's like 3 times that thing. If you have a word total, the total of 3 different, test scores someone has, then you have to add them because you're like adding the 3 separately. That's their total. If you have the quotient of something, that means you're dividing, for example. And then, if you're taking away whatever, that's subtraction. So there are certain words that you can look at in a problem that tell you what you have to do. Otherwise, it's just good to practice solving word problems. They show up a lot, not only on the SHSAT, but on future tests you're going to take in the future. So it's really important to build a good foundation and to get a lot of practice solving them. So now we're going to look at some word problems from the SHSAT. So Fan chose an internet service that charges $18 per month plus 2.4 cents per minute. Dayon chose an internet service that charges $30 per month for an unlimited usage. At the end of the month, Fan's and Dayon's charges were identical. For how many minutes did Fan use the internet service that month? Okay, so this is a word problem that we need to solve, and we need to set these two things equal. So the first thing that we need these two things to be equal. We need their charges to be equal so we can set up equations to model both of their charges. The slightly easier one is going to be Dion's charge because he pays $30 at the start of the month, and then it says for unlimited usage, which means he doesn't pay no matter how much he uses his phone. So Dion's charge is going to be 30, and we need that to be equal to Fun's charge. But now we just need to figure out how to set up an equation to represent Fan's charge, right? So it says he pays $18 a month plus 2.4 cents per minute. So per means times. So $0.024 times the number of minutes. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set, let's say like M equals the number of minutes for which Fan uses his phone. So we know that his charge is going to be 18 plus 0.024 times M. So per is one of those words that tells you need to use multiplication. So we're multiplying 0.024 by his, like the time he spends using his phone. So now we know that 30 equals 18 plus 0.024 M. And now all we have to do is solve for M. So the first thing we're going to do, this is just a simple like one variable equation. So we're going to have 12 equals 0.024 M. So here all we did was we subtracted 18 from both sides of the equation. Now we're going to divide by 0.024. So 12 divided by 0.024 equals M. And now we just need to figure out what that is. This is the same as 1 divided by 0.002. See how here I just divided both the top and the bottom by 12? And then if I multiply by 1,000, this becomes 1,000 over 2 equals 500. So M equals 500. So he used his phone for 500 minutes that month. The answer is going to be 500, which is answer choice H. Okay. There are now X cans stacked on a shelf that holds 36 cans when full. If 4 of these cans were removed, the shelf would be half full. What is the value of X? So another way of rephrasing the shelf would be half full is half of the shelf would be full, right? And so a lot of the times they're not going to give you the key words. You have to rephrase it into a way that makes one of them sort of appear. So if you see here, we sort of rephrased it in a way that has the word of. So we know that the shelf is being multiplied by half. So if we say like the shelf holds 36 cans, and now we know that the amount of cans that there are is half of that, which means we're multiplying it by 1/2. And what's that equal to? Well, this is when you have X cans and you remove 4. So remove is one of the words that tells us we need to do subtraction. So this is X minus 4. Okay, and now we just need to solve for X, right? So we know 36 times 1/2 equals X minus 4. Well, what does that mean? X minus 4 is 36 times 1/2 is 18. So 18 equals X minus 4. Now we're just going to add 4 to both sides of the equation. And we get 22 equals X. So X equals 22. 22 is the answer choice. Okay. A bag contains 75 marbles that are red, blue, or green. The ratio of red to blue marbles is 15 to 7. And the ratio of blue to green marbles is 7 to 3. If 2 blue marbles are removed and are replaced with 2 green marbles, what is the new ratio of red to green marbles? So what we're going to do here is we're first going to need to find exactly how many red, green, and blue marbles there are in the bag. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, so the ratio of red to blue is 15 to 7, right? That's what that tells us here. And the ratio of blue to green is 7 to 3. So normally what we'd have to do is, both of these ratios include blue. And if we want to get it into one ratio, we would have to make it so that the blue here is equal to the blue here. But luckily it already is. If it wasn't, we could scale up one of the ratios so that it does. So like, for example, if we're given that red to blue is 30 to 14, then we're like, okay, 30 to 14, that's the same thing as 15 to 7. So we divide them both by 2 and we'd get to 15 to 7. But since we have 15 to 7 and then 7 to 3, then we know that the total ratio is red to blue to green is 15 to 7 to 3. Okay, so now we know the ratio of red, blue, and green marbles in our bag. Now we need to solve for the actual amount. So what we're going to do here is we know that like 15x plus 7x plus 3x equals 75. This comes from the fact that this is what it means for the red, the blue, and the green to be 15 to 7 to 3. We don't know how many of them there are, but we know how like their amounts relate to one another. So like for every 15 red marbles, there's 7 blue marbles and there's 3 green marbles. That means that this can be equal to their value for some value of x. And now we just need to solve for what x is. So if we add this together, we get 25x equals 75, right? And then we're going to divide by 25. So we get x equals 3. Okay. So now we know that x equals 3, so we can find the amount of blue, red, and green marbles. So red is the first, right, of the 3. So it's going to be 15x is going to be the amount of red marbles. So we have 45 red. And then we're going to have 7 times 5 would be the amount of blue. So that would be 35 blue. And then 3 times 3 is... Oh, sorry, no, not 7 times 5. It would be 7 times 3, right? Because x is 3 and not 5. So 45 red. So 3 times 7 is 21 blue. And then we're going to have 3 times 3 is 9 green marbles. So if you notice, then these fit our ratio of 15 to 7 to 3. And also, if you add them up, you get 45 plus 21 plus 9 is, in fact, 75. And now the problem is saying 2 blue marbles are being removed and 2 green marbles are being added. So the new amount after you make this removal and addition is 45 red, right? 19 blue and 11 green. And we want to find the ratio of red to green marbles. Well, that's just going to be the amount of red divided by the amount of green, which is going to be 45 divided by 11. So the ratio is 45 to 11, which is answer choice D. I will say this was a much harder word problem. This is definitely on the upper level of difficulty you're going to see on the test because it had a lot of steps, right? We first had to combine the ratios. Then we had to figure out how many of everything there is. Then we had to switch the amount because it's telling us that some are being removed and added. Then we have to find the new ratio. It's gonna this is one of the longer, more difficult problems, but you just have to approach it like you would any other problem. You have to break it up into pieces, complete every one of those steps, and then solve it, and you'll be fine. Just don't panic and don't, sort of get discouraged if you're not seeing the answer right away. It's okay to, take a little bit longer on a few problems if they are more challenging. And so the last problem is, a United States presidential coin is made from an alloy of 4 metals, copper, zinc, manganese, and nickel, with weights in the ratio of 177 to 12 to 7 to 4, respectively. The coin weighs a total of 8 grams. What is the weight of the zinc in this coin? Okay, so we're going to do something similar to what we did last time. We need to find how many of everything there is. So the first thing we're going to say is like C to Z to M to N. Those are what we're going to call like the variables for like how much of every metal there is, equals 177 to 12 to 7 to 4, right? So we're going to add these things together first, right? Because we want to find. So 177x plus 12x plus 7x plus 4x equals 8, because we have 8 grams of the coin. So if we add these all together, right, you get 177 plus 12 plus 7 plus 4 is equal to 200. So if you see, it's like a nice little round number. So we have 200x is equal to 8. Okay. And we want to find the amount of zinc, right, which is the second, so it's going to be 12. So we need to find 12x. And so we don't actually need to solve for x here, right? That's going to take a little bit longer. But if you notice, 12x is just the same thing as 200x divided by 200 and times 12. So 200x times 12 over 200 equals Z. That's the amount of zinc. And now we're just going to substitute. We have 8 is equal to 200x. So instead of 200x here, we're going to write 8 times 12 over 200 equals Z. And, all our answers here are decimals. So we don't need to simplify the fraction all the way. We just need to get it to something divided by 100 because, right, that's how it's easy to get something into a decimal. Then we're just going to move the digits back and we're going to move the decimal point back. So 8 times 12 over 200 is the same thing as 4 times 12 over 100, right? And 4 times 12 is 48. So we know Z equals 48 divided by 100. So we're taking 48. We're moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. So Z equals 0.48. And if you see, that's answer choice B. So yeah, that's about it for, word problems. I will say there are going to be word problems in other videos because, it's sort of difficult. There's a lot of word problems on the SHSAT because that's sort of what they want to test you on. They want to see how quickly you can read and comprehend what you're trying to do and then do it. So, we're going to be practicing more with word problems, even though there's not going to be another lesson explicitly called like word problems. But, and if you're doing any practice problems, you should definitely emphasize these because they sort of encompass a large portion of what you're going to be actually doing on the math section of the test. But yeah, if you have any questions about what we did today, feel free to ask in the comments, and otherwise we'll see you next week.